best large HMO opportunities don't wait around. If you've ever felt unsure about your numbers, unclear on demand, or stuck in analysis paralysis, this 4-step method will boost your confidence and change the way that you invest. Now, what separates the investors that secure great deals from the ones that don't is having a process, a proven method to rapidly stack the numbers, confirm everything's as it should be at a viewing, and either move quickly to an offer or walk away knowing it's not right and why. When great opportunities hit the market, competition is on, and if you can't figure out if it's a winner in just a few hours, you're behind the 8 ball. No second chances, no time to hesitate. I'm going to show you how to do that for large HMOs in this video. I'm Stuart French. Over the last decade, my business partner Greg Railton and I have picked up multiple UK Property Investor Award nominations for our HMOs in Kent, built a £12 million portfolio and built our HMO investment company and lettings agency so that we can help landlords enjoy landlording again and help them grow their portfolios. In this video, I'm breaking down SCAN, the 4-step method that we use to stack deals quickly and reliably, check demands there at the price point that we want, confirm key details at a viewing, and submit solid offers, all in less than 24 hours. No hesitation, no guesswork, just a simple, repeatable process. This method builds on the SIFT framework from a previous video, so if you haven't seen that, I'll link to it at the end. And if you want to see some of our own award-nominated HMOs and copy them with all of the numbers and how we did them, there's 4 full case studies in the description below for you to learn from and start mastering HMO investing. All right, let's get into it. The first step in SCAN, S, is for stacking the deal. Deal stacking is ultimately 3 things: having a set structure of checks that you do every time for continuity, picking up the phone to harvest the right information, and putting accurate data into a spreadsheet for comparison and analysis. Think of it like a pilot running through their pre-flight checklist. It doesn't matter how many times that they've flown a plane, they still use the same process every single time. Why? Because it catches the things that they'd otherwise miss in the moment when there's pressure. It gives them the confidence that when they taxi out onto the runway, everything's in place and all things that can be known are known and checked. And that's exactly what your deal stacking process should do for you. You're not relying on memory or random notes in your phone. You have a process to follow and a place to store the information. Let's use a real example and work through it together. We're looking at a 4-bedroom house, £400,000 asking price, and we want to turn it into a 9-bedroom HMO and go for a commercial evaluation at the end. Now, we've already run it through SIFT, so we know that the size, internals, frontage, and town planning opportunity look good. Now we're here to find out whether we can make the numbers work. Now, here's how I've divided everything up. 1 tab per property, everything I need set out in the order I do it on 1 page so that I can see it all at the same time. Over the years, this spreadsheet grows into an awesome resource on its own as well, so if you keep adding to it, it's worth turning it into a library for yourself. I keep the cells that I need to change in green so that I have an easy visual guide on what to change. Then all of the outputs are in white for each section, and at the bottom I have all my outputs. So the first step, purchase costs. This bit's just numbers so I can move through this more quickly. Asking price, whether you're buying it with cash or a bridge, and how much you're using. In this example, I'll assume it's cash. Sourcing fees, any survey fees for a mortgage or bridging, legals, and if you're getting your own building survey, there's a space for it as well. Don't overcomplicate this part, just let the sheet do the work. If you're using bridging, include the broker fees and interest straight away. Bridging can be expensive, and pretending it's not, just to make the numbers look better, won't help you in the long run. Here's a good time to confirm these numbers with your broker on the phone and update your sheet. Once a month is a good cadence for that kind of thing. Stamp duty, I've got a formula in mind at the bottom that updates as I tweak the offer at the top, so I can see what it's costing, and it automatically updates the purchase price as well without having to recalculate it every time. A lot of this deal stacking process is about reducing friction so that you can do more. Work with the same solicitor every time if you can to simplify the buying process, and you can just pre-populate their price in the spreadsheet. It just makes life easier. The purchase price with all of our costs is now there ready for the next step. And this cell at the bottom tells me what my max offer price would need to be if I want to get all my money out but we need to complete the rest of the sheet first, so we'll come back to that bit. Then we move to rental income and running costs. Gross rent is your baseline for the final commercial valuation later. If the rents are off, the commercial valuation is off. We're going to dig more deeply into this in the next section on how to get accurate rental numbers and check price demand for our rooms. So for now, use some real data from Spare Room and we'll put something sensible like £750 per month, and we'll iterate from there a little bit later. This is just the starting point. With running costs, we typically assume around £100 per room per month, which is a running average for Pineapple's portfolio of large HMOs, plus management, or slightly less if it's 9 or 10 rooms. Our landlords pay 10% plus VAT for management, so I'll use that, and that gives us a realistic monthly cash flow that we can refine in a moment, with better rental data in the next section. Now, the refurb or development section. At this point, when we haven't even viewed the property, we're not getting builders' quotes yet. Not unless the deal's been sat around on the market for ages and you have a bit more time, which the good ones rarely are. So we just use past project data and a full list of every product we use: kitchens, bathrooms, beds, furniture, lighting, to get close to the real answer. Now, this is going to vary a lot depending on the finish that you're looking for, but the finish we go for on our own projects and the prices that we've paid, I usually work off £2,200 per square metre for extensions and £900 per square metre for internal works. And I keep the product list close by here so I can make edits, choose products and price it more accurately. 9-bedroom HMO, I need 9 furniture packs, and I know the floor area so I can roughly calculate flooring prices, etc. We supply our own materials rather than let the builder choose them. I'll pull the EPC from the property I'm looking at, grab the floor area and just check that against the floor plan to factor in any new build area. If you use values close to this, you'll get close enough for the offer stage, and we can factor in 5% for a contingency. Don't forget professional fees, so architects, planning, building control. We use the same people every time, so I've got a line for each of those in my sheet with a nominal price for their services on similar projects. If you don't know who to use yet, make some calls to architects from the planning portal that have approved HMO schemes and get a fee proposal from them and enter it into your sheet. So build this sheet as a tool rather than reinvent the wheel every single time. And there's a section to include all of the development finance at the bottom if you need money for the build. So you know how much your borrowing is going to cost you if you're borrowing development funds as well. But in this case, it's all cash. Now, the refinance. This is a big one because this is what tells you what money is coming back to you at the end. It's not going to be exact, but we can get close. Sure, we can call our broker and get updated mortgage interest rates and broker fees, product fees and all of that, all of the other little charges that add up, but there's something else to do here that's arguably the most important piece of this whole puzzle, and it's around the valuation, or more specifically, the actual valuer that might end up valuing this property. And the way valuers work out commercial valuation on a large HMO varies from valuer to valuer, so it's a whole thing. It's not the broker's job or the lender's job to value the HMO at the end, so there's another person in the loop that we need to speak to. And we're not trying to game the system here, we're trying to understand so that we can turn as many of the unknowns into knowns, or at least almost knowns, that we can, so that we can act quickly but with confidence in our numbers when it's time to act. So solving the revaluation comes down to knowing the valuer's process. Some valuers deduct actual running costs, others deduct a percentage from the gross rents, and they all charge different fees for a valuation, and not all of them are on the panel for the biggest lenders. So it's best to speak to your broker, find out which valuers are on the lender's panel that you're going to use, and call them. Have a conversation if you can, ask what yield they're applying, how they calculate it, how they deduct costs, and what evidence that they need. You don't have to do this every single time you make an offer, but if you're investing seriously, you should be tracking this over time because it changes and it matters. So a quarterly cadence is good if you're making offers regularly. Now, for deal stacking, we can simplify this revaluation process into 2 main variables that we can have built into our spreadsheet. The multiplier that they use, which is also referred to as commercial yield, and the percentage of costs that they deduct from the gross. So we pick up the phone and speak to the valuers on the panel of the lender that we're most likely to use at the end of the project. You might not get all of the answers, as they're the ones deciding ultimately, but we'll get a sense of their process and how it's going to affect the end valuation. So we can build that in from the very beginning and get much better clarity. Once that's all in, your spreadsheet should show you three things: your return on investment and how much money you're potentially leaving the deal after you refinanced it, your monthly cash flow, and your max offer to purchase the property if your goal is to pull every single penny out. That's your triangle. It's what helps you decide whether to move forward or tweak your offer or walk away without having committed to viewings and all of those endless follow-up calls from agents. If the return on investment's too low, drop the purchase price. If the cash flow's too thin, maybe consider taking a lower LTV mortgage product. Every tweak will affect something else, either positively or negatively. So it all depends on the outcome that you want and what works for you. Remember, you don't need every deal, you just need the right ones for you. Now, from here we can start to build a picture of where we need to be to get the outcome that we want. We all know that we need to cut costs, buy low, and have cheap borrowing, but now we know how much we need to offer or shop around on price to get the returns that we want, and which variables we can control in order to get the result that we want. And we also know what's realistic, which is a huge piece of the puzzle. So when you come up against things like, is it worth losing out on this deal for the sake of $5,000? Now you'll know. So stacking a deal isn't about typing numbers into boxes. It's about clarity. It's about building trust in your own process so that when an opportunity hits the market, we're just following a robust process that generates an answer that's as close to reality as it can be. You're checking your numbers, confirming your position, and speaking to the right people who control the variables that you can't, to understand their process too, and ready to move if the right signals are there that it's a deal. That's why the S in SCAN is for stack the deal. Everything else builds from here. And if you want to stack deals with more confidence and identify good opportunities in a few minutes, not a few days, click the Kent HMO Alliance link in the show notes below, join, and there's a copy of this spreadsheet available in there that will get you one step closer. Now, to complete our spreadsheet, we need to dig deeper into rent rates and check that there's demand for rooms at the price that we want them to be at. That's why the C in SCAN is for check demand. This is where we slow down just for a second, because this step isn't about a gut feeling or taking an average from spare room. It's about validating the price that you want to charge. When someone asks how much is an ensuite in Kent right now, that's the wrong question. What you really want to know is, at what price points is there demand for ensuite rooms in Kent right now? And more importantly, is that flat or are there variations? Now, earlier in the stack section, we used an average rent to start us off, but that was just an overview. This bit is where we get forensic, because HMO markets have two rental prices that dominate typically. The center of the market, what most tenants pay and are used to paying, and the top of the market, which requires a more focused approach to target that area. And these aren't small differences. In some areas, the top of the market can be £150 or £200 per room above the center. So there's two stages to the way that we price our rooms. Collect the market data and find the center and top ranges, and then refine our pricing with salary data in the areas that we invest in. Now, this bit is how I collect the market data to see what it looks like. Go to spare room and enter the location in the search bar. HMO is a super location dependent strategy, so I'm just going to assume that you're looking for properties in good locations, close to the town centre, transport, all of that stuff, and that you're comparing apples to apples. Bring up all of the listings in that area and copy and paste that data into ChatGPT, page by page, and get it to build you a CSV file. Advert name, rental price, single or double room, ensuite or not, who's listing it, and the listing date or the date that it's available, so we can see how long it's been online. We want to collect it all at the moment and we can refine it later. Our example property is going to be all ensuite, so once ChatGPT has made a CSV file for us, I'm using Google Sheets to filter out live-in landlords and irrelevant listings for studio flats, as well as any listings that aren't double ensuite rooms for now. We want direct comparables only. So live-out landlords who are mostly just agents anyway, or agents with company names. Once that's done, I'll open a histogram, and what I'm looking for is where the listings start to cluster. You'll almost always see two humps. This is your center of market and your upper end. What we care about is the volume. We want to see at what price points the market has supply around the center of the market and how long the tail is for the upper end of the market. And of course, the prices for both. Then I like to make a pie chart. I'm a pretty visual learner, so it gives me the clearest way to look at everything. Group the price ranges into brackets, say £25 increments, and look at what proportion of listings sit where. I like to color code the biggest slices with the most properties at that price. Green for the top of the market and something else for the center of the market. It just helps me see what percentage of the market is competing at each level. Now, if you're building top-end HMOs, you want to see a decent cluster around those premium prices, say around £800 in certain towns. Doesn't mean that every room will rent for that, but it tells you that there's a real tenant base there. And if you're targeting that side of the market, your build quality and furnishings have to reflect the price. You can't cheap out and expect top-end results. Now, once you've found your two price points, the middle of the market and the top of the market, you've got a clearer idea on price, depending on which one you're targeting. And that decision affects everything. Your refurb budget, your valuation, your cash flow projections. But there's one more check that I like to do, and that's using salary data, because rents don't exist in a vacuum. They're tied to what people can actually afford. Most HMO tenants are between the ages of 20 and 35, and we look for professional tenants. So I can find salary data for that person on the Office of National Statistics or Nomis Web to see what they earn. Also, I can see what the average earning is, which would be the 50th percentile, and all the way up to the highest earners. But I cap it around the 65th percentile, as anything else above that, they may choose to take a flat or apartment or rent a house or something instead. Now, I've got some data here for earnings across the Southeast, which is divided up into age group and earning percentile, because it's all in one place and it's easiest to understand. And you'll want to cross-check this with as many sources as you can find. The tighter the group, the better, but the smaller the data set will be. So again, it's a balancing act and something we look at a lot. These are pre-tax, full-time employed people. So knock off the tax to get the net income, divide by 3 to set the budget allocation for rent and bills, then 12 to get monthly. That will give you a monthly housing budget for each percentile. If that number lines up with the top of the market you found earlier on spare room, you're in the right zone. If it's higher, maybe there's an opportunity to put a room on at a higher price and see if there's interest when it comes to marketing the property. But for now, we're just looking for it to be within the range and to see where salaries sit against the rents, which ties in with our pie chart quite nicely. And we do see rooms rent quite regularly above what's on the market at the moment. The reason being, we're pricing based on affordability at the upper end, and we're providing a product that they want, rather than targeting the average and leaving income on the table. Then from there, it's back to the deal stack spreadsheet, and we can put in a range of rooms at, say, 3 different price points in our range and make a judgment on how many are going to be 840, how many are going to be 800, etc., based on our floor plan and the quality of the refurb that we've priced for, and get a closer answer to the return on investment, cash flow, and max offer triangle. Obviously, if you're targeting the center of the market, you'd use that lower value and your build costs would be lower. And this is the bit that most people skip. They just average out some similar market listings to get a nominal value, which is probably close, but it could be way off. If you follow a process like this, you can price more reliably based on the data and use your good investor instincts to take a closer stab at the right answer. Last thing, if you want the sheets that we use to stack deals and record all of the rents like I just did, they're inside the Kent HMO Alliance and the links are in the show notes. So remember, checking demand is about confirming the market appetite for your kind of room at the price that you want to charge. Collect the data to see what it looks like, and if you're aiming for the top of the market and delivering a great product, price initially based on salary, and then you can always dial it back. So the C in scan is for check demand for rooms at your price. With some confidence around the numbers, we can now move on to putting time into a viewing. And if you follow the SIFT process as well, you have an idea of how to maximize the time so that you can make offers quickly without hesitating, as you'll have access to all of the right information when you finish your viewing. I like to think about viewings as confirmation viewings. So we go into them with an outcome in mind, armed with all of the numbers that we need to confirm or reject whether it's possible, and a process to do that with, and the tools that we need. So the A in scan is for attend a viewing. Now, think about a professional in any field. A photographer doesn't turn up to a wedding without their camera. A chef always brings their knives to the kitchen, and a referee would always have their whistle. One of the first mentors I ever had, she was a real veteran. She'd been in the game since the 90s, a very sharp, stylish lady, and she was absolutely no nonsense. At our first viewing together, we met at the property, and I was taking the obligatory front of house picture we all take at the start of a viewing, and she pulled up next to me in her car and said, "Stuart, investors bring tools, tourists bring cameras." Then out of the boot of the car, she pulls 3 things that she always drives around with, and now so do I. And I'll cover them in a moment, but one line stuck with me. It wasn't harsh, it was true. I just brought my phone to take pictures and make notes. If you're planning to rip everything out anyway, what exactly are you looking at and taking photos of? So if you aren't measuring and confirming our numbers at a viewing, we probably don't have any extra information than Google Maps or the original advert, which isn't enough. The difficulty comes in knowing exactly what to do, what to look at, and what to measure at a viewing, and what to bring. So even if you've done 100 or 1,000 viewings in your time, this is the process that I use so that I can put an offer in the same day and not hesitate and risk losing the deal. It's either a yes or a no, right there and then most of the time. So first, I have these tools ready in the boot of my car, and I leave them there so I'm always ready if the right opportunity comes up. The first thing is a torch with a stand. It costs around 30 quid, and you'll want the one with the stand so that you can measure and look around with 2 hands when you're up in the loft or digging around somewhere dark. Next, I take a collapsible ladder, costs around 70 quid, and if your scheme would benefit from a loft extension, you'll need to be able to get up there to take some measurements to plug into the formula to calculate the volume. No guesswork. Next is a laser measurer, and they cost around £25. Easiest way to get the dimensions and check them against the floor plan. And no, don't take a tape measure. It makes measuring the loft really difficult because the tape's snagging everywhere and getting caught, and you can't feed it far enough. And the last one is a damp meter. This one's optional, and the good ones are quite expensive, about £400, and the cheap ones can be a bit misleading from time to time. So if you're concerned, the best thing to do is get a timber and damp survey. A damp meter is pretty useful though in situations where you feel like they've been throwing a load of stain block over the walls to hide a damp patch or something like that. And of all 4 of them, this one's the least important. But now at least you have the tools of your trade. So go buy them if you're doing viewings, and they will definitely help you. But what we do with them to get the maximum amount of the viewing is what we'll talk about now. If the property's a good one, it will be popular, and you might not get a second chance to come back and check something. Sure, you can always view again if you secure it, but why not just gather all of the intel in one shot and avoid any non-refundable costs if you find something at a second viewing that was there at the first. Now in the SIFT video, I gave you a formula for working out the volume of the loft. So first thing we're going to do is confirm the real world dimensions using that formula by measuring a few key points. And then we'll get a more accurate picture of whether or not we can get a loft up there under permitted development. So take your new tools and measure these things. First, you want to measure the ridge height, and that's the highest point of the roof down to the joists, and you want to measure directly below it. Then you want to measure full width of the loft from wall to wall, and remember from SIFT that we're looking for around 5 meters or more. Then you need to measure the width of the outrigger at the back if it has one, and if it's difficult to get into, you can do that from the first floor. Then you want to measure the depth of the outrigger, and again, You can do that from the first floor as well. Then the ridge height from the outrigger in the loft space. And then lastly, you want to measure the ceiling of the first floor outrigger. Now, our formula calculates the volume of the additional space that we'd be adding if we copied the floor plan below, so on the first floor, and did the same thing in the loft space on the second floor. So the bigger the existing loft space, the better, as there's less extension volume to add. Plug these numbers that you've just taken back into your formula, and hopefully you're under the 50 meters cubed if it's a semi-detached or detached property, or 40 meters cubed if it's a terrace. But if you're above that, there's still something that you can do. Now, if the ceiling height in the first floor is pretty tall when you measure it, say 3 meters of head height, you can reduce the height of the new dormer extension, so floor above, reduce the height of the new dormer extension, reduce this value from say 2.5 meters in our formula to 2 meters, for example, and it will reduce the volume of the loft extension as a result, because there's less height sticking out of the roof. Then to maintain the head height on the second floor rooms, we can just lower the joists, bringing them down by 0.5 meter. And that should give us an extension that's under PD and has ample head height. Not the ideal situation, but it can get you out of a pinch if it's tight. That's why we need to measure the ceiling height on the first floor to see if this is possible and make sure that we're not making the first floor ceiling too low when we do it. Next, head out to the back of the house. From there, we'll accurately measure the width of the back of the house and make sure the garden is big enough to allow us to put an extension on under PD, if that's the plan. Now, remember, you can go full width, but wraparound extensions aren't permitted, so only come up to here. However, it's April 2025 when I'm recording this, and there's a permitted development rights extension bill currently in the House of Lords that looks like it will make wraparound extensions allowable on the PD, as well as a raft of other positive changes that we're discussing in the Kent HMO Alliance, as it's big news for investors. So if you want the latest, you know what to do. Now, if the property has a basement that you're turning into a bedroom, measure the head height in the basement as well, so that you know whether the floor joists in the room above will need to be lifted in order to get the head height that you need. And see what the head clearance is like as well when you're walking down the steps to the basement too. If it's low, the staircase may need to be shifted backwards to increase that head height, which will add costs to the refurb budget, so make sure you measure those too. Then lastly, find the position of any manhole covers, as these may need to be moved if we're building an extension, and the positions of any electrical or gas meters and where they enter the property, because they might need to be moved too. All of that, plus the inevitable pictures of everything whilst you're there, will put you in a much stronger position to know as many of the unknowns as possible at this early stage, and will help rein you in if there's a lot more work than expected, or loosen you off if everything just looks right, and you'll have more accurate numbers. So by approaching viewings in this way, in a prepared, focused and professional way, you transform a day trip that just leads to more questions and uncertainty and doesn't really help you move forward into an opportunity to submit an offer with confidence as soon as you leave the viewing. And that's why the A in SCAN stands for attend a viewing, which leads us to our last step when securing the best HMO opportunities. The late, great Jim Rohn said that eating an apple a day and walking around the block was the easiest thing to do. But he also says that by it being easy to do, it's also easy not to do. And most investors aren't doing the easy stuff that they could be doing when submitting offers for this exact reason. Imagine getting all the way through this process: size, internals, frontage, town planning, stacking the deal, checking demand at our price point, attending the viewing, and then writing a one-line email with a number in it to submit your offer. Daniel Priestley talks about packaging your offer, taking your offer and putting a pretty bow on it and making sure it includes all of the things that the agent will need, and including them early on, making it super easy for them to say yes to. Now, you might have just thought to yourself for a moment there, wait, didn't he just say agent? I thought he meant seller, didn't he? Here's the truth of what we've learned over the last couple of hundred property purchases that we've been involved in. Vendors take their cues from the agent, and agents don't care who buys as long as they know the deal won't collapse. If a purchase falls through, they risk losing the listing to another agent and wasting weeks of work and annoying the client. Their priority is therefore certainty, the buyer that gives them the fewest headaches and the most certainty of sale, not the one with the most money, is the one that they'll put forward to the vendor as an option well worth considering. They're helping you because it helps them. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They're obliged to submit all of the offers that they have in writing to the seller anyway, so they're not hiding anything. It's a good thing because they're acting in the best interests of their client who ultimately wants to sell their house. They're making a case that if the vendor wants to sell, this offer is the most certain, even if it's not the highest. The vendor will make their own choice at the end of the day. But why wouldn't you tap into this if it could give you an advantage or help you secure properties even if you're not the highest bidder? So here's what not to do. If you're putting in offers with a one-line email and hoping for the best, you're making things hard for the decision makers for no reason. And that's why the N in SCAN stands for negotiate your offer. Not just throwing a number out, but making it easy for the agent to recommend you. And the best way to do that, submit everything in one clean, professional package as a complete offer up front. So here's what to include. An offer letter. A polite letter addressed to the vendor, preferably as a PDF, detailing your thoughts about their home and picking out some highlights, what you appreciate about the property. Include your price and make it human and personal. Build a connection with the vendor if you can. Then paraphrase your letter into an email to the agent and include these things. Proof of funds showing that you can move forward. ID and company information giving confidence in who you are. Solicitor's details proving that you're ready to go and giving them one less touch point to follow up on when making the memorandum of sale. And if you're using a lender, submit the lender details now as well. Show them that you've got finance already lined up and you're not about to put everyone through a 6-month ordeal. Now submit all of this at the same time with your first offer and make it clear and obvious that you're organised and ready to deal. It's a small extra step that makes a massive difference. You have to submit this stuff anyway, so why not just do it up front and stand out? The most prepared buyer builds trust, shows confidence, and creates separation from the competition. It might mean that you can secure the deal for a lower price, or that when it's decision time, yours is the offer that they'll pick because you've already shown you're organised and will be an easy partner to work with during the sale. Even if it doesn't go your way, something like 50% of all property listings don't sell anyway, so if your offer isn't accepted or the deal falls through with another buyer, you may get another shot and it's cost you nothing. Or at the very least, you've made a good impression, so if there's another property becoming available, you're in with a shot of being top of mind when the agent goes looking for other buyers. The biggest fear for a vendor and an agent is an aborted sale. They cost everyone involved a lot of time and money, so signal correctly that you're not about to waste everyone's time and you're taking control of the small things that make a big difference and leaving nothing to chance. So don't skip this. It's so easy to do, which means it's so easy not to do. So a quick recap. The 4 steps to rapidly check and confirm large HMO deals in Kent is the framework I call SCAN. S, stack the deal. C, check demand. A, attend a viewing. And N, negotiate your offer. It builds on a previous video which follows the SIFT method to find the right properties. Size, internal layout, frontage, town planning. If you haven't seen that one yet, I'll pop a link to it on screen now. And if you want a copy of any of the resources or spreadsheets I've used so that you can speed up your own process to stacking deals and getting more confident on your numbers, join the Kent HMO Alliance and they're available in there with the link below. And if you just want to copy what we did on our 4 award-nominated HMOs in Kent and see what's working at the moment, the links to those case studies is in the show notes below as well. Study them, copy them, use them. If you're joining the community, I'll see you on the inside. Otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.